Wait, I'm sorry, who wrote this article? 1 second, let me scroll to the top. All right, I'll reserve judgment until I see the whole list, but I would say that already this article is not going well. The 10 best chess players of all time. Our beloved game of chess has many legends, world champions, challengers, world-class players, and grand masters. The games of these masters delight, inspire, and teach us the ways of the royal game. It is common to discuss the greatest player of all time in chess circles, but these discussions always beg the singular question, who was the best of all time? Here are the 10 best chess players. All right. Okay. Let's start with the honorable mentions. Honorable mentions. The following players are all chess legends and are in the conversation for the best players of all time, but for one reason or another ended up just outside of the top 10. Paul Morphy. Okay. Paul Morphy was the let me just leave it right here. Paul Morphy was the embodiment of romantic attacking chess, the strongest player of the 1850s and the best player of the entire 19th century. There was no official world championship title during his era, but he was light years ahead of his competition and is recognized as an unofficial world champion. Morphy won the 1857 American Chess Congress and then traveled to Europe in 1858, winning every match he played versus the world's leading players. Morphy taught the chess world about sacrifices, development, attacking, accuracy, and more. His legendary opera game is considered one of the most famous chess games of all time and is still studied today. Bobby Fischer listed Morphy as one of the 10 greatest players of all time. All right. So to me, I don't know where you put Morphy. I think it really depends on a couple of things. It depends, I think, on how you contextualize chess. Thank you to Arc9 VX for tier 1. It depends how you contextualize chess. So to me, for example, the way that I view chess is I feel like a lot of what makes chess a great game is the intuition, the pure ability, the pure skill set that you have in the game of chess. And I feel like when I look at like the eras, you kind of have to take into account how far ahead of someone was versus the others. And to me, the pure intuition, the pure intellect of Morphy is really, I mean, in many ways unparalleled. I think there were probably players in the 1700s who maybe were just as far ahead of the other competitors. But if you look at it within the context of all the players having the knowledge, having access to the same knowledge, and the fact that Paul Morphy was probably about 300 to 400 points stronger than every other player, to me, I think what that says is he probably would be in a top 10 list that I would do objectively, because everybody had access to the same information. Like, what made Morphy better than his opponents? There were no computers. Everyone sat down with their wooden chessboard. They tried to make their notes, and they tried to know some basic openings. But a lot of it was the pure ability to find good moves. And so to me, the fact that they put Morphy as an honorable mention, I think is kind of questionable. That's what I would say. And he was way ahead of his contemporaries, further ahead of his contemporaries than anybody else was. And yeah, Morphy versus his contemporaries was like 400 points better, I think, whereas Magnus at his peak is not more than 100, which, mind you, is still very impressive. But I think Morphy should be in a top 10 list, based on the way that I would read it. So, and like, to put that in context, what I would say is, so that's like saying if Paul Morphy was around, or let's just say Magnus today, if Magnus was playing today and his rating was like 3100, that would be like the comparison. Like 3100, he's 3100, the next best players are like 2800. Like, that's how good Morphy was. So to me, I think maybe he should make it. I didn't see exactly what those 10 names were, so I'll hold off judgment completely, but I think putting him as an honorable mention is a little bit questionable. Okay, next up is Tigran Petrosian. Okay. GM Tigran Petrosian, or Iron Tigran, was a world champion during 1963 to 69 and a 4-time Soviet champion. Undefeated the entire years leading to his world championship title in 1962, he was known for his defensive prowess and his famous exchange sacrifices. According to GM Daniel Naroditsky, he is one of the first elite players with a truly universal style. Petrosian defeated the legendary GM Mikhail Botvinnik to become world champion in 1963, defended his title against Boris Spassky in 1966, and then lost the rematch to Spassky in 1969. In 1971, Petrosian was GM Bobby Fischer's last stepping stone to face Spassky for the World Championship in 1972. His victory over Fischer in the second game of their candidates match stopped Fischer's historical and unprecedented 20-game winning streak, although Fischer did win the match. All right, so Petrosian, I don't know. I mean, I have to see the top 10. I mean, he was a great world champion. He's probably one of the few world champions where when I've looked at his games, there have been very few things that stand out if I'm being objective. But I would say that, like, I don't know. I don't really consider Tigran Petrosian in the same category as Paul and Morphy, so it's already, this article is already off to a very poor start. All right. Next up is Vishy Anand. Wait, I'm sorry. Who wrote this article? One second. Let me scroll to the top. Colin Stapnitsky wrote this article. Okay. All right. Vishy Anand. GM Viswanathan Anand was the FIDE World Champion from 2000 to 2002 and the 15th undisputed champion from 2007 to 2013. He lost the Professional Chess Association PCA World Championship match against GM Garry Kasparov in 1995 and lost to GM Anatoly Karpov in the FIDE World Championship match in 1998 on tiebreaks before winning the FIDE World Championship in 2000. In 2007, Anand won the double round robin World Championship tournament ahead of GM Vladimir Kramnik and other world-class players and was crowned world champion. In 2008, he defeated Kramnik in a match to become the 15th undisputed world champion. He defended his title by defeating GM Veselin Topalov in 2010 and in 2012 against GM Boris Gelfand. In 2013, Anand was defeated by reigning world champion Magnus Carlsen. Anand is the strongest Indian grandmaster of all time and has inspired multiple generations of chess players in India and around the world. All right, so what I'm going to say is, since I can actually already see who number 10 is, Anand, I think without a doubt is in the top 10 of all time. If you look at his achievements, he's a 5-time world champion. He won the tournament in the knockout. He won it in the matches. I mean, like, he's won in all the formats. He 100% should be in the top 10 without a doubt. So I think for Anand to be on honorable mention is just also forget about the fact that Anand at the age of 50 is still competing against the best in the world. So Anand 100% should not be in honorable mentions. Morphy, I'll reserve judgment until I see the whole list, but I would say that already this article is not going well. Okay, number 10, Alexander Alekhine. Alexander Alekhine was the 4th official world champion and held the title from 1927 to 1946, with an exception during 1935 to 37. He was a brilliant and well-rounded player with a special ability for combinational play in complex positions. He also taught the chess world that rules and principles can be broken based on concrete analysis of the specific and unique situation. Alekhine became world champion by defeating Jose Raul Capablanca in 1927 despite being a large underdog. He had never won a single game against Capablanca before the match. Alekhine's reign as world champion was long, but he successfully defended his title only twice, both times against GM FM Bogolyubov in 1929 and 1934. Capablanca and Alekhine never had a rematch for the world championship due to various reasons. Alekhine faced GM Max Oiva for the world championship in 1935 and surprisingly lost. 2 years later, Alekhine won the rematch against Oiva to earn the crown back, but he would never defend it again. He passed away in 1946 as the world champion, the only champion ever to do so, although he was finalizing the details to play a match with Botvinnik. Okay, I see nothing wrong with Alekhine being in the top 10. Definitely changed the game of chess. Makes sense. Okay, number 9, Mikhail Tal. Okay, so number 9 is Mikhail Tal. GM Mikhail Tal, also known as the Magician from Riga, was the 8th official world champion. He defeated Botvinnik in 1960 to earn the crown at the age of 23 and a half, becoming the youngest world champion in history at the time, although this record was broken by both Kasparov and Carlsen. Known for his brilliant and unique attacking style, Tal's approach to the game has been an inspiration for attacking players for decades. One of his most famous bone-chilling quotes is, "You must take your opponent into a deep dark forest where 2 + 2 = 5, and the path leading out is only wide enough for one." His games collection, The Life and Games of Mikhail Tal, is a chess classic and considered one of the greatest chess books of all time. So what I would say is, based on what I've seen so far, I don't think that Tal is in my top 10. I mean, he was a great chess player, but I have looked at quite a few of his games, and to be frank, I've seen some games that are the quality is really quite bad. The quality is not good, and I do not in any world think that you can put Tal in the top 10 ahead of someone like Vishy Anand, who first of all has been a world champion more times, secondly has played for a much longer period of time. So as much as I respect Mikhail Tal as a chess player and how all the great contributions he made, he is not a top 10 player of all time, so he should not be number 9. Yeah, he shouldn't even be ahead of Alekhine, you know, let alone in the top 10. All right, number 8, Emanuel Lasker. Emanuel Lasker was the second official world champion and held the title for 27 years. His reign from 1894 to 1921 is the longest of any world chess champion, and his playing career lasted 5 decades. Lasker defeated the first official world champion, Wilhelm Steinitz, in 1894, and he defended his title 5 times against a host of world-class contenders, including Frank Marshall, Siegbert Tarrasch, David Janowski, and Karl Schlechter. In 1921, Lasker lost the title to Capablanca, but continued to play at the highest level. He placed 3rd in the 1935 Moscow tournament at the age of 66, half a point behind Botvinnik and Salvo Floor, but ahead of Capablanca, the first women's world champion Vera Menchik, and 15 others. All right, so Lasker should be in the top 10. I think that's very reasonable to put him there. I have no issue with number 8. Number 7. Whoa. Oh, okay. Before I get into number 7, I have to stop for a second. How in any world do you put Kramnik in the top 10 and you don't put Anand in the top 10? There is no way. There is no way in a million years that you can put Kramnik in the top 10 and not put Anand in the top 10 when Anand has a vastly superior career. That's just a big mistake. I know he beat Kasparov, but so what? So what? That's very dubious. Number 7, Vladimir Kramnik. GM Vladimir Kramnik was world champion from 2000 to 2007. He became the classical world champion by dethroning the legendary Kasparov in 2000. Defended his title in 2004 against GM Peter Leko, and in 2006 faced defeated world champion Topalov in a title unification match. Kramnik defeated Topalov to become the first undisputed world champion since Kasparov in 1993. At his peak, Kramnik's game had absolutely no weak points. He could do it all. He was known for his fantastic endgame play and his clean, tenacious, and positional style. Kramnik is considered one of the most difficult players to defeat in the history of the game. Kramnik was a top player for over 25 years before retiring in January 2019. All right. I mean, Kasparov was not his absolute peak in 99-2000, but of course he was still extremely strong. My only issue with Kramnik, I don't have any issue with Kramnik in the top 10. My only issue is that there's no way that you can put Kramnik in the top 10 and not put Anand in the top 10. That's my only issue with it. I think you can definitely make an argument he's in the top 10, but definitely Anand should be in the top 10 as well. Thank you, Snake Houses, for the 9 as well. Appreciate it. So let's keep going. Number 6, Mikhail Botvinnik. All right. GM Mikhail Botvinnik is known as the father of the Soviet chess school. The 6th world champion reigned from 1948 to 1963 with 2 brief intermissions and was a top player for over 30 years. Botvinnik's style was dictated by iron logic and flexibility, although he was extremely talented with methodical and strategical planning. His flexible style allowed him to adapt to all different types of playing styles. He became world champion in 1948, defended his title against GM David Bronstein in 1951, and defeated GM Vasily Smyslov in 1954. In 1957, Smyslov defeated Botvinnik, who won their rematch the following year. At the time, the world champion had the right to rematch if they lost the title. In 1960, Botvinnik was defeated by Tal, but history repeated itself as Botvinnik won their rematch in 1961. Although his reign as world champion was brought to an end by Petrosian in 1963, Botvinnik continued to play at a high level until his retirement in 1970. Botvinnik started his chess school in 1963, and he was the teacher of 3 future world champions, Karpov, Kasparov, and Kramnik. All right, again, no big issue with Botvinnik being up there. Seems completely fine. Number 5, Anatoly Karpov. Interesting. Okay. Now I won't spoil it, of course, you guys. So I'll try to go as slow as I can. I'm gonna try not to spoil. Okay. GM Anatoly Karpov was a 12th world chess champion and reigned from 1975 to 1985, while also being the FIDE world champion from 1993 to 1999. Karpov was an exceptionally well-rounded player, but his specialty was positional binds, prophylactic play, and wonderful endgame technique. Karpov became world champion by default when Fischer withdrew from their 1975 match because his demands weren't met. Karpov defended his crown by defeating GM Viktor Korchnoi in 1978 and again in 1981. In 1984, Karpov would have his first meeting with Kasparov, and the chess world was changed forever. In the first of 5 matches between two legendary titans, the match was called early, with Karpov leading 5 wins, 3 losses, and 40 draws. In 1985, Kasparov defeated Karpov and claimed the chess crown. They played again in 1986, 1987, and 1990. And when their matches were concluded, their lifetime record in world championship matches was 19 wins for Karpov, 21 wins for Kasparov, and 104 draws. In 1993, Kasparov broke away from FIDE, creating the PCA, and Karpov became the FIDE world champion. Karpov defended his FIDE world champion title by defeating GM Jan Timman in 1993, GM Gada Kamsky in 1996, and Anand in 1998 on tiebreaks. Karpov refused to play in the 1999 FIDE World Championship tournament after FIDE changed their rules. Alright. Karpov's legendary games continue to be a source of inspiration for all positional and endgame players today. Tibor Karolyi's 2-volume work titled Karpov Strategic Wins is considered one of the best chess books ever written. Alright, makes sense. Okay. He definitely should be in the top 10 for sure. Number 4 is Jose Raul Capablanca. Alright. Let's scroll down, okay. Jose Raul Capablanca was the 3rd official world champion and possibly the most talented chess player ever to play the game. From 1916 through 1924, he amassed a tournament record of 40 wins and 23 draws, an unprecedented feat at the time and still a historically significant achievement. Capablanca's talent and skill were unmatched during his 8-year period. Capablanca became world champion by defeating the legendary Lasker in 1921. Many believe that Capablanca would have defeated Lasker had he been given the chance before 1921, and many believe that he would have reclaimed that title had he been given an opportunity for a rematch with Alekhine. Unfortunately for Capablanca, his peak playing time happened both during and between World War I and World War II. Every world champion and contender is well-rounded, but Capablanca had a special gift for the endgame. Even now in the engine of era chess, it is difficult to poke holes in his endgame play. Ernie Chernov's book Capablanca's Best Chess Endings is a classic. Going 8 years without a single loss and becoming world champion are something the chess world won't ever see again, and only Capablanca achieved this feat. So pretty standard. He should be in the top 5. Okay, number 3, Bobby Fischer. Now this one I need to be careful because this is where all the suspense is, right? Okay. GM Bobby Fischer was the 11th official world chess champion, as well as the first and only American world champion. He is considered by many to be the most famous chess player ever. From 1970 to 71, Fischer won 20 consecutive games against world-class opposition, an unprecedented and mind-boggling achievement that will most likely never be equal. This feat is counted among the 7 most amazing chess records. In 1972, Fischer defeated Spassky in the match of the century and was crowned world champion, despite starting the match with an 0-2 score after throwing away Game 1 in a completely equal endgame and not even showing up for Game 2. Fischer's dismantling of the Soviet chess empire from 1970 to 1972 during the midst of the Cold War is considered one of the greatest individual performances of all time. His style was unique, original, and creative. He could attack and defend with the best of them, but he also showed a very deep and almost scary positional understanding. Fischer inspired multiple generations of chess players in the US and around the world. Alright. Obviously should be number 3. Okay, who's number 2? Is it Gary or Magnus? What do you guys think? Who's number 2? I'm betting number 2 is Magnus. Let's see. Okay, let's scroll. Oh, yeah, anyway, we got it. Fischer's game of the century is one of the most famous chess games of all time, and his book titled My 60 Memorable Games is considered one of the best chess books in history. All right, number 2, Magnus Carlsen. All right. GM Magnus Carlsen. GM Magnus Carlsen is the reigning world champion for all 3 time control, standard, rapid, and blitz. In 2009, he became the youngest player in history to reach the 28 rating threshold, and on April 21st, 2014, he reached his peak rating and the highest chess rating ever at 2889. Carlsen had been the number 1 ranked player since 2011 and has been dominating the game ever since. As of February 2020, Carlsen has been on a 120 game undefeated streak. in standard time controls, another record for the world champion. His resume is already more than enough to be considered number 2 on this list of the best players of all time, but Carlsen is only 29 years old and may not have even reached his peak playing strength. Carlsen became the world champion by defeating Anand in 2013 just before turning 23 years old, the second youngest world champion ever, behind only Kasparov. He has successfully defended his title 3 times. In 2014, Carlsen won the rematch against Anand. In 2016, he defeated GM Sergei Karyakin, and in 2018, he defeated GM Fabiano Caruana. Carlsen himself does not believe he has earned the number 1 spot on this list. According to an interview in January 2020, Carlsen states that Kasparov had 20 years uninterrupted as the world number 1. He must be considered as the best in history. But I feel that time is on my side. I'm not yet 30 yet. If I were to be considered the best in history at 30, I would have had to start dominating at 10. All right. That's a good point. I think that's the only thing that separates is the amount of time that Gary was number 1 was 20 years. So that's why he I think remains number 1. And of course, number 1 on the list, the one and only, the legend, Mr. Gary Chess himself, the creator of the game of chess. All right, number 1, Gary Kasparov. All right. Okay. GM Gary Kasparov is the 13th world champion and held the title from 1985 to 2000. He first reached the number 1 ranking in 1984, with a few minor exceptions, remained the number 1 player in the world until 2006. Kasparov dominated the chess world for over 20 years. Kasparov reached his peak rating of 2856 on March 3rd, 2000, at the time an unprecedented number and a record that wasn't broken until Carlsen surpassed it. In 1985, Kasparov defeated Karpov to become the youngest world champion ever at the age of roughly 22 and a half. He defended the world championship title against Karpov on 3 consecutive occasions in 1986, 1987, and 1990. In 1993, he broke away from FIDE and started the PCA. This break would create 2 different world championships until the reunification match between Kramnik and Topalov in 2006. Kasparov defended his title by defeating GM Nigel Short in 1993 and successfully defended his title again by defeating Anand in 1995. Kasparov and Lasker are the only 2 world champions to defend their titles successfully 5 times. In 2000, Kramnik defeated Kasparov, ending the reign of the best player of all time as world champion. However, Kasparov would continue playing in and winning tournaments until his retirement in 2005. He left the game as the number 1 rated player in the world. Kasparov has remained active in the chess world after his effective retirement. He has played exhibition matches and even trained Carlsen and GMHikaru Nakamura. His 5-volume series titled My Great Predecessors is considered one of the best books ever. All right, so overall, I would say a pretty respectable list. I would say that the following is what I would change. What I would change as I go through this list are the following. The top 3 are pretty normal. Capablanca, Karpov, top 5 I can live with. I would say that after the top 5, I think probably I would put Anand 6. I would put Anand 6, Kramnik 7 maybe, then Botvinnik 8, Lasker 9. And actually, as I look at this list, I think number 10 for me would be Morphy. So my list would be Kasparov, Carlsen is fine. Fischer, obviously, those are the top 3 by a country mile. 4th place Capablanca. 5th place would be 5th place is Karpov, that's reasonable. 6th place for me though would be Anand. 7 would be Kramnik. 8 would be 8, maybe you could put Botvinnik. 9 I can see Lasker, and 10 would be Morphy. Although then again, if you're gonna put Lasker there, Morphy probably ranks higher than Lasker. So I don't know, but I would say yeah, I think Morphy and Anand 100% have to be in the top 10. Especially when I look at this top 10 list. I think Tal definitely does not belong in the top 10. Yeah, Tal doesn't belong, and I think you can make some argument that Alekhine also kind of doesn't belong in the top 10 either, because Alekhine dodged playing against the best player of his time, as we covered in recent articles, where he played against Bogolyubov 2 times instead of playing against the 2nd best player in the world. So I would probably get rid of Alekhine and Tal, and I would put in Anand and Morphy for sure. But otherwise, it's fine.